David Oyelowo here, and you're rocking with thebobbypin.com.
What's up, world? It's your girl, Bobby Pin, and I am back with a brand new feature. I had the opportunity to sit down with writer, director, producer, and Golden Globe nominated actor David Oyelowo. You probably recognize him as Martin Luther King from the critically acclaimed film Selma last year. Well, he's back in a new role as Brian Nichols in the film Captive. It's based on a true story from an experience of the life of Ashley Smith. It's a really inspiring story as much as it'll have you on the edge of your seat. And the overall theme is that sometimes negative can actually be a positive. Here's what David had to say.
Hi everyone, it's David Oyelowo here. I'm talking to you about my new film Captive. It'll be in theaters as of September 18th. I hope you enjoy it.
So David, I first came to learn of you as an actor from your role as Martin Luther King in the film Selma. You played him so eloquently and so poised and so distinguished, and Brian Nichols is a huge contrast from that. What drew you to such a character?
You know, you never want to be associated with just the one thing in your career. There's a very real risk that could happen, playing someone of Dr. King's stature. So I guess creatively speaking, that's a reason to be drawn to it. But actually more so than that, it was the story. I was very inspired by just the life that Ashley Smith has gone on to live beyond this moment, beyond the moment where a guy who killed 4 people in a day before then taking her hostage while she's in the midst of still being a victim of meth addiction. And their 7-hour encounter leading to a moment where he lets her go, gives himself up, she regains custody of her daughter, never touches that drug again, and goes on to live such a full and purposeful life. I just felt of all the places for that journey towards wholeness to begin for her, this devastating, traumatic event is just the last place you expect something like that to happen, but it did.
Absolutely. So where did you draw your inspiration for the character, playing a bad guy, being dark, actually having, multiple facets, which I picked up in the character as well. You did a great job in showing his humanity in certain points, and you were definitely insane where you had to be as well. So what was the process to get yourself in that mindset?
Well, anytime you're playing a real life person, you sort of start from what actually happened and who they actually were. Talking to Brian was not possible because he is serving multiple life sentences in a prison in Georgia. So Ashley Smith, who's the lady he actually took hostage, was a huge source of information from that point of view. She was on set with us for a lot of the shoot. Her book, Unlikely Angel, was a brilliant source as well. Talking to a clinical psychologist about people who do the kind of thing Brian has done and how you get to that place, reading a lot on him, watching footage of him from the day that these events took place and the trial that ensued afterwards. Those were all the places I went to cobble them together.
Okay, so you'd say it was an advantage that this was a true story? So you maybe had a little more to draw from? Or?
Yeah, I think definitely an advantage because, that I think is what makes, hopefully anyway, it feel authentic. If it was just a made-up killer, I think that's when you can get a bit fantastical. You're certainly... And then, also there's a tendency to glamorize a killer when you're not dealing with real lives that have been broken by what he did. It was something that I had to be very aware of in playing him. Brian Nichols was an ex-football player, he was a big guy, so I had to get bigger than I normally am. And he did break out of that courthouse in just a suit with no shirt on, 2 guns. These are the kind of things that we associate with the hero in a movie a lot of the time, the badass kind of action hero who's going around sort of killing people. So we needed to do as good a job as we could cinematically to take away any glamorization, any glorification of what he did, which was tricky because, like I say, we're used to seeing guys that look like him being the guy we're rooting for.
Right. Which I appreciate you acknowledging your physical transformation, because I definitely noticed, oh my gosh, your body looked awesome. So what was the training process for you to get in shape and to become Brian Nichols?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always try to go to the character rather than the character come to me. And Brian, like I say, much bigger guy than me. So, it was about going in and doing the opposite of what I had to do to play Dr. King, which is for Dr. King, I think I gained 30 to 40 pounds of just blubber. It was all the weight gain in that was muscle, but also to kind of really create the intimidating guy he was and must have been, especially breaking into Ashley Smith's house that night. But you always want to get as close as you physically, emotionally, spiritually can to the guy you're playing. So whatever it takes, whatever work you need to do. But it was definitely painful, I'll tell you that.
Well, it definitely looked like it paid off.
Thank you.
Awesome. Probably wasn't supposed to be paying attention to that. Definitely enhanced the story. So having Ashley on set, what were her thoughts having her book and her story transformed into a movie?
For her?
Share anything with you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing that really struck me was the fact that at this point, she says she felt by the time Brian Nichols broke into her apartment, she felt this was God's way of saying, you deserve death. You deserve death for the choices you've made, and this is the end. She literally thought she was going to die. And not only did she not die, it became her salvation moment. It became the moment beyond which her life turned for the better. That, to me, is the miracle of the story. I know it was tough for her to watch some of the stuff we were depicting, because even though she's gone on to have a better life since, it's still a traumatic event that, she's not in a hurry to relive. And seeing me dress the way I was, talk the way I did, move the way I did, because she very much helped me with what it was like to be in that apartment with him that day. And in some ways it was a compliment that, seeing me slightly freaked her out. And so it was a difficult thing for her to relive, and I know that every time she sees the film also it's a bit of a difficult watch.
Okay. So the message was very clear that God can use you and that you can fulfill your purpose no matter what your past has dictated. What do you hope people get from this movie, from your portrayal even?
Well, I hope that, people see themselves in the situation, not necessarily specifically as Brian Nichols or Ashley Smith, but as people who've made mistakes, people who've at times hit moments in your life where you're devoid of hope and you are desirous for a second chance. But also there are times where we feel like we don't deserve those second chances, maybe because of things we've done. And that was definitely the case with Ashley Smith, but God sees things differently. When I read The Purpose-Driven Life before I even knew about this story, what I found really amazing about the book is that it illustrates how God's purpose for your life transcends any purpose you could have for your own life. And that is definitely played out in Ashley Smith. And so I hope people come away feeling that they are worthy of that it is something they can take a hold of, wrap their arms around. And it's really, it's a film about the power of a second chance.
Awesome. Any final thoughts? Maybe something I haven't asked you yet?
Well, I mean, for me, again, one of the reasons I really wanted to be a producer on the film is I don't really enjoy films that are heavy-handed in their messaging, where they feel preachy. I think an audience should not be patronized. They should be able to form their own opinion. The great thing about this film is that the elements of faith are organically integrated into the story. It did happen. She did read The Purpose-Driven Life to him. She has gone on to live a life filled with faith that she didn't have at the time, partly because of this experience. And I think that, my hope anyway is that people, whether they're people of faith or not, come away with the fact that this is a true story. And I'm certainly inspired by Ashley Smith in particular, and I hope they gain inspiration from her and the story as well.